everyone, I'm Kate Watson. I am starring in the brand new thriller coming to Lifetime this Friday called Killer Advice, and I'm in the studio with 519.
Thanks for joining us. On this edition of In the Studio with 519, we sit down with Kate Watson, who stars in the new Lifetime television movie Killer Advice alongside Meredith Thomas and Eric Roberts. Before we check in with Kate, let's take a look at the trailer.
Oh, like we said, we like to put the family touch on things at the firm.
I see we've reached the hard sell portion of our evening.
I wouldn't call it a hard sell.
You know, why don't I get these dishes out of here? Jess?
Yeah, I'll help you.
So, I know you've been taking a couple of meetings, but let me tell you why Motley & Mitchell is the perfect fit for your portfolio.
Hey, time for dessert? Just about. Mom, I'll get the rest of the dishes. Thank you.
So, how's it going down there?
Well, just as well as you'd expect when your therapist shows up to dinner with your husband.
Still can't believe she stayed.
Oh, I asked her to. Nick could really use the new client right now.
No, what he needs is a swift kick in the butt, okay? She should not have stayed.
Do you need any more help? Because I have to go study. Before cheesecake, Simone spent the whole afternoon on it.
Oh, my secret ingredient is misanthropy.
Thanks, but I just want to get back to the books.
Okay. Well, you know, Jess, your father and I would really love it if you stayed.
Well, Mom,
Okay.
Need any help with dessert?
I'll be upstairs.
I think we're good.
Everything okay?
Everything's fine. Marcia, have you met Simone?
No, it's nice to meet you.
Isn't it a little weird for a therapist to show up at a client's house?
Simone.
No, it's okay. I really wouldn't have come if I had known.
I'm sure. So you must know Brendan from your office?
Yes, of course. Love Brendan.
He's been my therapist for years, but never been over for dinner.
Would you point me in the direction of the powder room?
Of course. It's straight down the hall on the right.
Killer Advice premieres Friday at 8, only on LMN.
You've had a busy 2020 with a couple different releases, and 2021 is off to a great start with your first film of the year, Killer Advice, on Lifetime. Tell me about the film.
Well, Killer Advice is, I guess we could consider it a psychological thriller. It is the story of a woman named Beth Curtis, who is a wife and a mother to a teenage daughter. And seemingly from the outside, she has what some might call an ideal life. She's got a great job. She's a high-powered executive at a business. She has a beautiful home. She seems put together, but we start off the movie with quite a bang. You know, I don't know if you've seen the movie, but it jumps into the action and drama right away. And Beth goes through a traumatic experience, which unfolds throughout the film, and she has to kind of reckon herself to deal with that. And she goes to see a therapist, and that therapist may not have best interests at heart. So,
What drew you to the film?
well, I had done a movie previously, the following year or the previous year, with the same director and same production company, Jared Cohen and Mutiny Films. And so they reached out to me when they were about to shoot this one and sent me the script. And I thought, you know, I haven't played a woman who was struggling with mental health or trauma before. I think for any actor, the idea of getting to dive into a subject matter that seems like you're gonna have to partake in quite a deep dive, an emotional roller coaster, is always attractive. But I also, you know, I'm really passionate about speaking to mental health. I think it's something that we don't talk a lot about. It's something that we kind of have attached a lot of shame to, and people kind of sweep under the covers a little bit. And so I think that this was a good opportunity to shed light on the realities of trauma and mental health and how that plays into family dynamics and friend dynamics and work dynamics. So that was exciting.
Absolutely. This isn't your first Lifetime film. Do you feel a connection to Lifetime at all?
It's not my first Lifetime film. No, I've done a couple. You know, what I love about Lifetime is that a lot of the narratives are centered around women, which we're getting better at here in Hollywood. thankfully. But, it speaks to a lot of common issues that women face, whether it is to deal with their spouses or their family dynamics, children. So I love that it centers around usually stronger women, or women have to kind of overcome something and learn something. And the audience of Lifetime is wonderful. I mean, they're so invested in the stories and us, the actors. And so I love the Lifetime fans. So it's fun.
This also isn't your first drama. Is drama something you personally enjoy?
Yeah, I mean, oddly enough, so I'm originally from Hawaii, which is very far from Windsor, very different climate from where you are. And I would like to say that I'm a pretty laid back island girl. But I do have the drama bug. I think that I'm attracted to different elements of myself. And I think that complexity, complex narratives that kind of challenge the status quo, that make people think and feel differently. We've all gone through some sense of drama in our lives or some upheaval that we've had to deal with. And so I think that exploring that is very exciting as an actor.
With the character of Beth, was there a way you wanted to explore or handle the character?
Yes, I didn't have much time to prep for this. So I think I got the script in like the following week we started shooting. So it wasn't a whole lot of time to actually dive in and do any real research around trauma victims and what that looks like. But I did know that I wanted to play her kind of how I read her. So when I first read the script, I remember thinking to myself, wow, it's uncomfortable. Like I'm reading these scenes that Beth is in and I feel uncomfortable. And so as I was, playing her, and in all of my honesty, just being present in the moment, I wanted the audience to feel just as uncomfortable as I was feeling in those moments. And hopefully they will feel that. But I also thought, we live in this day and age where it's all about the superheroes, right? And they have all these special powers. And I didn't want to sugarcoat Beth. I wanted to play her a really raw and vulnerable and kind of teetering on the edge, this glassy-eyed, the eyes of her really tell her truth, where maybe the outside tells a different story. I wanted to play her as real and as grounded as I could. And also I kept thinking to myself, bravery doesn't look the same on everybody. Bravery is not the fear gone. It's not the depletion of fear. It's having the fear still and moving through that. So in every scene, you still might see the fear, but the bravery will come through, hopefully.
Sadly, I think we all know somebody kind of like Beth. Is there somebody you know personally that is a little bit like Beth?
Yeah, I think in some aspects, there are several women and men that I know that are like Beth. Like I said, I think that we unfortunately have attached a lot of shame to traumatizing experiences. And I think that we do that to ourselves too. It's sometimes very hard to reckon with yourself when some challenge has affected you in a very deep way. We're just coming out of this year where our lives were, changed overnight almost. And a lot of people are still suffering. They've lost loved ones, they've lost jobs. And so I think that, we're kind of told that we have to put on a brave face and kind of continue on and march on, which many of us are doing, but we can't deny the fact that it has been an emotionally and mentally challenging experience for us. So I think right now, yeah, there's a lot of people that I know, probably including myself a little bit, that have kind of had to reckon with attaching shame to their emotional and mental health.
Mm-hmm. Well, keeping that poise and that posture is something that's not new. That's been around for years, just as much as the entire situation is really.
Absolutely.
But we are getting better at it.
Yeah.
I think.
I think so. I think because we are talking about it, we're realizing how important it is to have that conversation. And because I think we're seeing the effects of what mental health actually becomes, right? How it manifests itself. And if we don't address it, then we're going to continue having these problems that, that come from that stem from that. So, yeah.
So a lot of eyes start to pop when they see Eric Roberts' name.
Yes.
What was Eric like to work with?
This is my third film with Eric, but I didn't have any scenes with him on this film. However, I can tell you from having scenes with him in prior films, he's great. I think anytime you get to have an actor, Eric is, he does a lot of movies, and he certainly brings a different element and different truth to all of them. And he's an actor that he can jump into a character and he'll play ball with you. So he's present in the moment. He'll kind of throw a curveball at you and take risks. And that's always fun to be with someone who kind of is in his element when he's in the scene with you and not as predictable.
Has there been an actor you've ever worked with that you've learned a lot from?
I think that every actor I learn a little bit from. We're all so different, right? So we have different approaches to how we find a character. I remember being on set for this film and thinking, wow, I liked that, or there was an element that I didn't understand, because we don't have time really for rehearsals. We move so quickly shooting movies like this. So finding different moments in the scenes with actors that I was, doing the scene with was always wonderful. And so I always leave a set kind of going, oh, I'm gonna take that and put it into my tool belt. Yeah.
So not to typecast in any way, but you seem to be somewhat of a network television actress in many ways.
Uh-huh.
But you've worked with some of the big brands. Do you like being affiliated with network television stuff? And do you think being on television boosts your profile for future stuff outside of television?
I think that I was just talking with someone about exactly what you just are saying. I think we live in a time where streaming has changed the game for actors, right? There's so much content. There are so many wonderful shows that are being made now for TV. I think that the production value, the scripts, the stories that we're telling, we're elevating what TV kind of used to be associated with, which was kind of like cheap and cheerful, right? And so from network TV to streaming, I think that, anytime an actor gets to work and play, they're growing, they're experiencing another character, another element of themselves. So any chance I get to kind of play and it's a good story and a good script, then I'm game to play ball. But yeah, certainly I think that TV is a great place for actors to start. Mm-hmm.
I've heard you have a ballet background. Is that something you still have interest in? And do you think ballet helped to prep you to be an actress?
Absolutely. I think dance is very close to being an actor. In many ways, dancers are actors because in order for them to actually really perform well, they have to get into that emotional and mental state while they're on stage. So I can say this, starting as a dancer so young, I learned technique of discipline, of working really, really hard. I think a lot of those elements of being able to kind of, absorb something and internalize information and then let it go. That's what a dancer has to do on stage. When they get on stage, all that technique and those hours of rehearsal and perfection at the bar, they get on stage and they let all of that technique go. It's still muscle memory inside of them. And it's the same thing with acting. You do all of this prep if you have time and you work the script and you break down the script and you understand that character, but you have to let all of that go when you're on a set. But it's still inside of you. So I think in many ways, I use that training to help me today. I'm also a really physical person. So I love the physicality of all my characters. I try to find, how are they walking? How are they holding themselves? With Beth, again, there's a lot going on internally, but maybe on the outside, she's still so used to kind of holding herself a certain way. She's a very passionate woman, but yet very professional at the same time too. So all of those things definitely help me in what I do today. And do I miss dance? All the time. I get really emotional when I see dancers still. It's a wonderful art form and they're athletes. So.
Absolutely. My next comment on that was basically that it's a very hard thing to do. It's not something you just jump in and start dancing with, especially when it's disciplined.
Yes.
Is that something you recommend for future generations to do?
I think anytime you get to do something and learn technique and learn craft through a very strong discipline, it's going to help you in whatever you do, right? So I think one thing that I would hope that future generations do understand is that this is a game of millimeters. It's inch by inch. It's just one foot in front of another. And that takes a lot of time. It takes discipline to really be in that marathon run because a lot of people want things very quickly and they want to kind of get there and end the race very quickly. But when you look at people who are master dancers, master actors, if we can quantify them as master, but people who are excellent at what they do, they have all of that training and all of that skill set because they've gone through each single facet, that millimeter by millimeter to learn their craft and to have that nuanced performance and learn that element learning about the industry, learning about film itself, learning about lighting and directing, all of those different aspects of what we do help an actor. So.
How about Hawaii? Did growing up there influence you obviously influenced you as a person, but what about acting?
Yeah, I grew up island girl until I was about before teenage years. I moved to Minnesota of all places. But yeah, I mean, I grew up not only as a dancer, but someone who, being on the island, was wondering what was the rest of the world like? What did it look like? Well, how do people live? I love the Hawaiian culture and was engrossed in that, which I was living in. But I always was curious what was outside of the islands. And so my vehicle to know that was before pre-internet, right? It was movies and television. So I loved books, I loved story, and then of course watching films and television. I think that was kind of my shoehorn into wanting to explore the world of film. But yeah, I think the culture of Hawaii, the people of Hawaii, there's a sense of pride that you have about the environment around you and the connection with people. And I think ultimately, to be a great actor, you really have to be someone who loves people. Yeah.
One thing I noticed right away is, like many, many people, we say Hawaii incorrectly.
It's actually Hawaii, if you could believe it or not. It's got a kind of a silent V, apostrophe I. Yeah.
That's funny.
It's in me. It's in my language.
So when did acting hit you? What was the one point when you went, yeah, that's it? And from that point, when did you reach your first gig, and what was that?
It's an interesting story. So when I graduated from high school, I went to college for theater, and moved to LA when I was about 21 years old. And this was, a while ago. And it was a different landscape for actors back then. There wasn't as much work, certainly, because streaming wasn't around yet. It was prior to the Me Too movements. So even work for women was very different. It was different looking. And especially for a young woman, challenging. So I came out here and I was raring to go and start booking jobs, and slowly found out that it wasn't the time for me. So I took a break and went and had a career in cosmetic and sales and fashion, basically, and in that world. And I was a top executive at some companies for about a decade. But little by little during that time, I knew that it had a timestamp on it. I knew that it was a matter of time before I came back into this line of work that I loved, that I felt a calling to. I started hosting on television as a spokesperson for several brands. So I've done the shopping channels and selling things. And that was also a great kind of, transition from office and presentations into now live television and thinking on your feet and having to speak well. But that also it wasn't allowing me the time and the actual bandwidth to go to auditions. So I've been at this for about 5 years, but I was still doing some hosting. And then about 3 years ago, decided, you know what? It's time to just jump in with both feet and come back to acting. My first gig was a short film called Traitor. And I loved that film. It's a great film if you have the opportunity to check it out. I think there's a website. You can look on my IMDb, but it's a film that really speaks to something that I think this past year that we were experiencing around division, people's division and cultural division. And it was a lot of fun. It's a black and white noir that takes place in a future place, but looks like it's shot in the 1930s. So
beautiful.
Yeah.
So acting gives you the chance to be many different people in many different situations. What has been your favorite and most relatable character so far?
Oh boy. It's bizarre. I think that all of them obviously have a little part of me that I love, and a part of me that I kind of go, ooh, maybe I'm a little too close to that. But I think my favorite, well, I did love playing Beth. I loved it because I was just, it was full on engrossed in this character. I was an emotional mess. I mean, I remember we were shooting so fast, like I said, but between scenes, I was holding all of this emotion close to me. And at one point, the poor AD kind of pulled me aside. It's like, are you okay? And I just lost it. It just all kind of came pouring out of me. I needed that release. But I loved her because she made me kind of tap into those parts of myself that I think, again, we have to kind of reckon and find that we have to be truthful and honest through our shame. So I loved playing her, but I also loved playing this sergeant in a film called Bridge of the Doom that's not out yet. And I had about 6 weeks to train for that film, and it was an action horror movie. And I played this character who is a sergeant in the army, and it's a post-apocalyptic type world movie with zombies, and she leads her troops to a bridge to kind of hold the bridge from this pack of zombies that are coming. And so I think that prepping for that role, because I had a little bit of time, I trained really hard in the gym. I put on a ton of muscle. And it was just a really physical role. And I went to also go train with some of the Delta Force to learn how to deal with guns that I know nothing about, and some combat. And that kind of cracked open a different side of me as well. I didn't know that I would feel as comfortable in a very physical, take charge, strong type of role. But that was very close to me. In the end, it felt very similar to me.
Thanks to Kate Watson for joining us. Make sure to check out Killer Advice, her new movie on Lifetime Television. That's all we have. I'm Dan Savoie. We'll see you next time on In the Studio with 519.